Welcome back to Cover One, everybody. This is the pregame show. I'm your host, James Bouligny, with my co-hosts, Ryan Chadwick and Paul Harris. How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's going, man. Playoffs full swing.
Area round playoffs, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Get fired up. What are you doing? Get fired up.
We're pumped. We got a lot of football ahead of us this weekend.
The Concho Valley sadly saw quite a few teams get knocked out in the first round, though, right?
Yeah, there was a couple good matchups. There was a couple close losses, like that Robert Lee game ended up being, the sixth highest scoring six-man football of all time. And then...
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was a great
of course,
game.
Miles barely fell in the end by 7. A couple heartbreakers and a couple that we kind of saw coming, but still glad our teams made the playoffs.
Yeah, we're going to get into all of it, but before we do, let's thank our title sponsor, Whataburger.
Whataburger's Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich is back.
Chicken strips. Chicken strips. Chicken strips.
Ranch.
Ranch.
Buffalo. Ranch. Monterey Jack cheese.
The Whataburger Buffalo Ranch Chicken Strip Sandwich. A beautiful masterpiece.
All right, we're going to start off with some 6A action. Concho Valley doesn't have any 6A teams, but Lubbock does, right? Let's start with Friendship Chadwick.
Yeah, so unfortunately it's a bit of a heartbreaker for Bobcats fans out there, because despite the Bobcats not making the playoffs, every single District 2-6A team won their playoff matchup last week. And they all moved on to the area round. But the one that we're going to highlight today is Friendship versus South Lake Carroll. Now, the Friendship Tigers are the District 2-6A champions, 10-1 on the year now. They've played incredible, and their one loss that they lost by 4 points.
How do you pull Friendship, or how does Friendship pull South Lake Carroll in the second round?
It happened to them 2 years ago, too. I don't know. Whoever is making these playoff schedules, the fact that we're paired up with DFW in the second round is a crime. But
I mean, in the first round we were too. I mean, Miles, Collinsville, Lindsay, they were all in that area, the DFW area as well. So
I definitely just think it's just some bad luck for West Texas at the moment. But with that being said, Friendship met up with South Lake Carroll 2 years ago at San Angelo Stadium. That game was not close. South Lake Carroll was obviously the better team. I'm not saying that Friendship is definitely going to win this game, but they stand a much better chance. Their offense has never been more explosive. They can run the ball. They're even more talented through the air. Quarterback Holden Phillips it has the chance to set the single game passing record for Friendship this week. And, of course, he's got Chase Campbell and Leighton Stone on the outside. One's a D1 commit. One's going to be a D1 commit. And it should be a much better game. But I'm still picking South Lake Carroll to win this one just because of their history and how good they are this year as well. But I do think this one's going to end up being a lot closer, like a 49-35, 42-28 type game.
all right, let's move on to Midland High and Crowley, Saturday at Shotwell Stadium.
Now, this is another one. I think this is District 2-6A's best chance to get through the area round onto the regional quarterfinals. Crowley's not a bad football team by any means, considering in the district they play in, but it's going to be a tough challenge for Midland High. They have to go to Abilene, I believe, on this one. Yeah, so they're going to be playing this game in Shotwell, and I think that with their offense, they have the best chance of winning out of all the teams this weekend, just because of what they can do by keep the ball on the ground. If that offensive line can get a push and just set their running back loose, they got a shot.
All right, and their running back, Elijah McCoy,
Incredible.
broke records. It broke records this year. Moving on to Odessa Permian, though, they're playing North Crowley at Crowley ISD. What do you think? I think North Crowley is going to give Permian a run.
Yeah, this one's going to be tough for Permian. While I've seen really good things from Permian this year, they're the ones who I picked to win the district in the preseason. Obviously, that didn't happen because they have holes in their defense and they allow big plays. Central proved that when they played them, but it's going to be a tough matchup for Permian.
All right, and moving on, Midland Legacy and Euless Trinity. What do you think about this one?
So this is a game that Midland Legacy won last year. These two teams met up in the area around a year ago, and it seems like Clint Hartman up there knows what he's doing on the coin flips because Midland's hosting Euless Trinity again this year. So they got past them last year. Of course, this is not the same Midland Legacy team that showed up a year ago who ended up inevitably losing to Allen. But Legacy, with that coaching staff and that culture, that they always have a chance. You can never count them out. But Euless Trinity's probably taking this one.
All right. And what about our 5A matchups? Lubbock, Monterey, Denton, Ryan at ACU.
So you want to talk about Lubbock just having a bad draw. First friendship with South Lake Carroll.
It's not the only bad draw in the 5As.
Yeah, Monterey just they pulled Denton Ryan, the number 3 team, according to Dave Campbell's across 5A. They have just decimated opponent after opponent this year. I think their only loss on the season is to Aledo, 3-time defending state champion Aledo. So this one's going to be tough for Monterey. To Monterey's advantage, though, is their offense. I do think Denton Ryan's going to have a bit of a hard time stopping. They just have too many weapons on the offensive side of the ball. The thing is, Luke Arrington, he cannot turn the ball over. If he doesn't turn the ball over, then Monterey's got a shot.
All right, and what about Lubbock Cooper and Walnut Grove? What do you think of that one?
So the seeding for Lubbock Cooper is a little weird. They kind of fell apart at the end of district, dropping games to Wichita Falls Memorial and to Abilene Wiley. So in the district, they were projected to win. They were state ranked. Everything was going good. They ended up with the 3 seed out of that district. Had to go play a 1 seed last week in El Paso. Won that game handedly. No one over there called it. Everyone was favoring the El Paso school, but Lubbock Cooper found a way to get it done, and now that they're playing a very talented team in Walnut Grove, they're 10-1 on the year. This one's kind of a coin flip for me because Lubbock Cooper is a team that beat Lovejoy earlier this season, and so they've proved that they can play with DFW schools. So let's just see if it works out.
All right, and what about Abilene High versus Aledo? Abilene High is a good football team, though.
Yeah, so Abilene High is a good football team. I watched Monterey absolutely pick them apart. That's why I'm giving a little bit of credit to Monterey in their Denton Ryan matchup. But Aledo is the 2 or 3 time in a row now defending state champion for a reason, and I don't see them faltering here. Abilene High's offense is explosive if they show up, right? So Abilene High did not show up against Monterey, and that was the best example, as I've seen, is someone just picked them apart. Had a hard time stopping the run. That they let several short pass plays go for 70, 75-yard gains to touchdowns, So Abilene High needs to play better on defense, and they have to be efficient when throwing that football. The biggest factor in them losing the district championship to Monterey was that they had too many fumbles, right? They turned the ball over too much. So Abilene High's got to take care of the football. But you want to talk about a bad pool. Yeah, facing Aledo in the second round is as bad as you can get.
Well, another rough one that we're talking about is Estacado and Brock. Brock moved up from 3A D1 to 4A D2, right?
Yes.
They're D2 now. And it hasn't slowed them down at all. They're like 10-1 or something last time I checked. Brock is still playing extremely good football. What about Estacado?
Estacado's a team that started the year out slow, but Coach Eric Ward up in Lubbock, he has brought this team together and made them kind of believe that playing for each other is going to elevate them to the next level, and he wasn't wrong. So it was a loss to Canyon Randall, but it ended up being a loss by like 21 points. But it was a game that they were losing, by 60 in the first half, and they ended up coming all the way back. And even though they lost that game, Ward was like, he had this big old smile on his face, and I was like, Coach, like it was still a big loss, and he basically just smiled and he told me, he's like, oh, just wait, we're coming. Ever since then, Estacado has averaged more than 45 points a game. They're not turning the ball over. They stopped committing the stupid penalties that were basically just giving lengths of fields to their opponents. I'm talking unsportsmanlike conducts, basically stuff outside of the whistles. And now it just seems like Estacado has really found their groove. They got 2 really talented guys coming out of the backfield in Cedric Ross and Bobby Ross. And Bobby Ross is playing some grown man football right now. He's playing both ways at 4AD2, which is impressive any way you look at it. He's their leading tackler. He's their sack leader. He's also their leading rusher. He's accumulated over 5,000 yards at Estacado in his high school career, and he has over 100. He has over 1,000 yards this season alone. And I just think that their best shot is relying on Bobby Ross. That offensive line has to get pushed, though, because Brock is no pushover.
No, they're not. And let's talk about Brownwood and West Plains. I know Brownwood had high expectations this year. I went there and talked with Coach Burnett, and they had a new quarterback, and I feel like that really affected them. I don't know if they ever really found their quarterback. They played Big Spring here last week on Friday and beat Big Spring pretty handily, and now they move on to West Plains. Do you know anything about West Plains?
I mean, West Plains is a good football team. Like,
they're in the second round.
Yeah, they're going to be hard. Like, everyone's good at this point, right? There are no freebies anymore, and West Plains they have dominated the teams around them, and like I'm as much as I like rooting for the Lions, like I don't think they make it out of round 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure West Plains played Liberty Argyle this year, and Liberty Argyle went to Amarillo and played them and put the beat down on them pretty well. Yeah. But then again, that's private. That's Jason Witten coached, you D1 athletes all across the field.
On that team, yeah.
But yeah, let's go ahead and hear from Angelo Bolt. Ryan.
All right, since 1994, Angelo Bolt and Industrial Supply has served the Concho Valley for 30 years and counting. Angelo Bolt is the go-to place for fasteners, power tools, air compressors, safety equipment, and everything in between. Chances are Angelo Bolt will always have what you need when you need it, and in that odd chance they don't have exactly what you're looking for, they'll find it fast. No request is too big or too small for Angelo Bolt. Located at 808 Warehouse Road, where customer service is their top priority. Thank you, Angelo Bolt, for bringing us all our coverage of all things Concho Valley and beyond.
All right. Chadwick, go ahead and get out to Wall so we can talk crap about you.
Oh, come on, man.
All right.
I am excited for the Hawks. I will be covering all this weekend.
Okay. Let's talk about Wall and Childress, though. Paul Harris. What do you think about Wall and Childress?
Yeah, this is a rematch. Wall and Childress played last year. Wall got past them 21-14, I believe.
Yeah, Wall played them last year.
Now Childress scored a couple of late touchdowns, so it wasn't quite as close as it appeared. But Childress has got a good program, and this should be a tough second round, matchup. They're only 6-5, so not a great record, but definitely a solid program that's going to give Wall a lot more trouble than Anthony did last week for sure.
Yeah, no, I was at the Anthony game, and Landon York, the numbers will blow you away. He was 5 for 6 for 213 yards. Every pass he completed was for a touchdown. And they weren't deep passes; they were short outs. The guys just caught him and took him the distance. And he also had one rush for 45 yards and a touchdown. And Wall is playing extremely good football right now, right?
Man, they're playing incredible. I
don't think anybody expected them. And I said this last week, and I talked with Coach Slaughter. That first 5 games of that schedule were rough. It was Brownwood and Jim Ned and Sweetwater and Monaghan's and another team that they beat.
Mason and Idalou also.
Mason and Idalou. Anytime you came out of that with 1 loss, which was phenomenal. And I was thinking, man, you're looking about 500 when you hit district, you're still doing good. And they took it and ran with it. They picked up this offense. You got to give Landon York a lot of credit where credit's due because he's been playing fantastic.
Yeah, with a quarterback like that operating at that kind of a level, and the defense. And it's not like the Wall teams of old. Great teams, but they were scary sometimes. They fell behind 10-0 in a playoff game.
It was just hard for them to get back ahead.
Right. I have no doubt that their offense can do that now. My only real concern is that they haven't seen any type of competition in maybe 6 weeks. Not since Idalou. They had a non-competitive district, unfortunately. They weren't tested at all. So Childress is going to be the best team they've seen in about 6 weeks.
Well, and that was one thing, too, that I talked about with Slaughter was, yes, you haven't really been tested, but your backups get a lot of playing time. So, it does hurt your team, but it also helps your team. And I do think there is an expectation at Wall where you're going to play at this standard all the time. You're not taking plays off. It's just bred into the community out there.
No doubt. And Slaughter knew they didn't have a great district, and that's why he stacked the non-district schedule he did to prepare them. And so, they haven't seen, a good test in a while, but they're going to be ready. It's a great team, and they look like the best team in this region to me.
Yep, and then we have another game going on right here in San Angelo, Shallow Water and Peaster. Peaster beat Comanche last week. That was their first playoff win ever in program history. For Peaster. I knew they were a new program, and they've played Wall a couple times, so Wall knows Peaster pretty well. And they beat Comanche. Great on them. They're getting Shallow Water, and Shallow Water is not going to lay down. Shallow Water is an extremely tough team from the Lubbock area, and they're extremely good.
Yeah, a couple of 9-2 teams here at San Angelo Stadium. So
yeah, no, it should be good. And maybe you're riding high off that win from last week, and you just get things rolling. Let's talk about Littlefield and Crane. Crane played Grape Creek last week. Started off as a pretty good game, but then Crane just started pulling ahead. Big running back bashing things in for him. You know anything about Littlefield?
I really don't. They've had some decent tradition, up there in the Lubbock area, and Wall will get the winner of this game, which I feel like Littlefield's the favorite, but again, I don't want to look ahead for Wall, but I don't think either team poses a serious threat to Wall.
Yeah, we got to talk about Region 1 because the only other team in that region is Canadian that I think that's still on the board that's really going to threaten Wall in any way, shape, or form. And they know Canadian. They beat them twice in the past 2 years.
Right.
In that third round or fourth round.
Canadian's been the team in this region. I wouldn't overlook Idalou, even though Wall beat them 33-10. They did force 6 turnovers. They have a dangerous quarterback that runs around, and like I said, a defense that did give Wall trouble. I think Wall only had like 5 turnovers in all their other games combined. So Idalou is kind of Wall-like, and if it's not Canadian, it could be Idalou that's threatened them for the region title.
Well, absolutely. But I do think the game after that, and I know we're looking ahead, but the game after Canadian or Idalou is probably going to be Gunter. Gunter has had a phenomenal program past few years, but I really think that's going to be the de facto state game for 3A2D.
Yeah, it really could, and all roads kind of go through Gunter right now. So even if this is the best Wall team we've seen in some time, and Wall's had a great run of teams, it still is going to be difficult to get to Jerry World having to go through Gunter.
Absolutely, but I do think that the Gunter Wall game would be better than the state game.
Sometimes
I think as far
like
as
that.
the quality of game goes, I think that would be an incredible. That's going to be a really good matchup, and I do think Wall's going to get there. I really think Wall's going to go to state this year.
This seems to be the year they've got a complete team. I don't see any weaknesses. That they can do it. They can run. They can throw. And the defense.
The defense just they had a pick 6 last week. They had 2 pick 6s last week.
Yep.
And then they had an interception. I don't care who you're playing. When you get 2 pick 6s, you're around the football. Your guys are always in the right position. And there were a couple times where Brian White came off that edge and could have just creamed the quarterback. If he'd gotten there just a second earlier, and it just wasn't fun after a while. It just wasn't fun after a while. But we've already kind of talked about Idalou. I mean, they're playing Stanton. How do you feel Idalou's going to hold up against Stanton? Stanton was in Wall's district, and Wall beat them pretty handily. And that was in the district championship game. So now they get Idalou. What do you think is going to happen there?
Stanton had a really good running back. I don't recall his name. He had over 100 yards on Wall's defense, even in that blowout. So I was impressed by him. They ran a real quick, hurry-up offense. They've had a breakout season. I think they went from just 1 win last year to maybe 6 this year, and a playoff win. A few years ago, Stanton pulled a crazy playoff upset of Childress that never saw coming. They had like 2 defensive touchdowns that game. So, they've done it before. Idalou is definitely the favorite in this matchup, but wouldn't completely count Stanton out.
All right. Celebrate birthdays with a cookie cake. Great American Cookie says, good luck to the Wall Hawks. For your next party, get a cookie that's like a cake. Cookies, brownies, ice cream, and more for birthdays, holidays, or game days. Go to Great American Cookie, located with Marble Slab next to Cinemark Tinseltown at 4553 Sherwood Way. Okay, now we're going to talk about some 2A ball. We got Junction and Falls City. Falls City has some pretty good tradition down there of, if you remember a few years ago, Cristobal met up with Falls City. I believe you were at that game, Paul. I was there too on the sideline. And I kept thinking if Cristobal had a kicker, they would have won that game. But Falls City won, and they have a pretty good tradition down there in Falls City. They're playing Junction, who has an incredible team this year. They're undefeated. So what do you think about Junction there?
Yeah, it's a huge contrast. Junction, I think just 2 years ago, won 2 games. And so they've got the better record here. They're 10-1. Falls City's 8-3. But in terms of tradition, Junction just won its first playoff game last week in 8 years, whereas Falls City, 17 straight years I think it is that they've won 7 games or more.
They went to state a few years ago.
Yeah, state final just 3 years ago. I think they were in the state semis last year. Just tons of tradition. So even if it's a bit of a down year for them, as well as Junction has played, great offense, great defense, I do wonder about the huge disparity in playoff experience here. Junction just doesn't have any, and Falls City is loaded with it. That could be a deciding factor if it's close, maybe. But Junction's had a great season, first district title in 21 years. In fact, besides Wall, they played Mason closer than anybody this year. So they've had a great season. That was their only loss. So big win last week, 61-26. But again, similar, to Wall not seeing anybody in a long time with competition.
That was
Junction
I was
also
about
had
to
a
bring
weak
up competition.
district.
I was
They
about
just
to
ran
say
through
that.
district. They did have one common opponent with Falls City, and that was Brackettville, and both scores were almost identical. So based on that, would suggest it's a close matchup. But again, just it's the playoff experience that makes me a little nervous for Junction. They just haven't been in a game this big.
Right. No, and Junction, unfortunately, is, an hour and a half away, hour 45. I mean, not hour 40, probably about an hour
They're
and a half.
about an hour and a half away from us.
But about the same as Mason, and Menard is probably about an hour. So it's just way out there.
And then in the playoffs, they draw teams south and east of them. And so
it's hard to
see
get
them.
to. I mean, last year, I think Mason played Ganado in San Marcos, which is a drive. It's like a 4-hour drive to San Marcos. Don't get me wrong, it's a great matchup, but let's go ahead and talk about Mason and Weimar. What do you think about there in Georgetown? What do you think is going to happen there?
So Mason's won 10 in a row. They haven't lost since Wall, and they have just rolled. They haven't been tested. Sutton Solario, kind of under the radar a little bit, just because, like I said, they're so far out there on the fringe of our coverage area. But he has almost 1,900 rushing yards this year. Got all those linemen, the quarterback. Carlton Schmidt's putting up good numbers each game too. But Solario, just what a home run hitter he is. He can take it to the house. He's averaging like 15 yards a carry. It's just
that's nuts.
Yeah, it's just outrageous. And so, Mason's just chugging along. I don't think that Weimar is going to give him too much trouble. And similar to Wall, maybe not running into any resistance to the regional final, and maybe the same for Mason, not seeing a team that can slow them down until Ganado.
Well, or Refugio. Those are the two teams that are probably going to.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two teams that are probably going to match up in the next round.
Right.
And you talk about a great game. I think Ganado kind of surprised everybody last year, and they kind of came out of nowhere. But I guarantee you, Mason has that score written down in their field house somewhere from that Ganado game.
Right. They don't lose often. Exactly. They certainly don't get blown out like that. So.
They're going to remember that. So whoever it is, if it's Ganado or Refugio, know Mason's coming and they're packing a punch because they have returners and they're hungry for another state title. What about Post and Anson? Anson beat Cristobal last week. Anson is out of that district with Stanford and Cisco and Hawley, and that's just a power district. They blew Cristobal out pretty well, and Cristobal was playing pretty good there at the end of the season. And they got Post. Post, of course, has Ian Vergara at running back, who had like 300 yards in the first half against Olton, I believe, or one of those teams up there. Just a monster season for him. What do you think about this one?
These are two really good teams,
Right.
Like you said, Anson is a sneaky number 3 seed coming out of there. They only lost to Albany by 10 points. That tells you something about how good they are. Post has been playing great all season. This is a really good second-round matchup, and either one of these teams is deserving to go on to the third round.
Yeah, and the same with the Abernathy-Cisco game. Abernathy was playing really good football too, and Cisco seems to always have a decent team, always hitting the playoffs. I know that when your district is matched up and one team has 5 wins, the next team has 4 wins and 1 loss, and then the team after that has 3 wins and 2 losses, there's a clear hierarchy there, and that was that district a couple years ago. Was you knew Hawley was going, you knew Stanford, you knew Cisco were going. That last one was kind of, is it going to be Olney? Is it going to be Anson? And Anson does play. They're playing extremely good this year.
Yeah, Cisco, even in a down year, you just can't overlook them. I mean,
Right.
They take down a good Reagan County team.
And I'm pretty sure they got their quarterback. I think he came back from injury.
Okay.
And they beat Reagan County, and they weren't supposed to.
Right.
But moving on, we have Hale Center and Tahoka. Everybody knows Tahoka's playing good football right now, but Hale Center is also in the area around. They're playing good football as well. What about those? Do you know anything?
I'm going to be honest, we're starting to leave my area of expertise going up into the South Plains. I don't know as much about these schools.
No, neither do I. That's kind of Chadwick's department there. But Ropesville and Farwell, Farwell made it to the second round last year. They played Sonora and Snyder, and they got beat. Sonora beat them. I think it was pretty close for most of the game, but then Sonora just took over, and they pulled Ropes, and Ropes is playing really good football this year as well. So that should be a pretty decent game. I think it's going to be a pretty decent game. And what about Coleman and Axtell? I mean, Coleman last week, I think, surprised everybody by pulling off a win in Wolf City.
Coleman's been proving me wrong for a few weeks now. I got to give them a ton of credit. You know, they were 0-7. They earned a tough win over Ballinger. They earned a tough win over Heiko. Both of those were one-score games. That puts them in position the last week of the season. They win again. Suddenly they had a 3-game winning streak. They sneak into the playoffs as the number 3 seed. Good story. Surely it's going to end last week, and then they pull off another stunner, 40-35 over Wolf City, an 8-win team. So, I mean, Coleman, I wrote them off a month ago, and here they are still playing. They're a big underdog again, but, you know, best of luck to them. I don't want to count them out again. So
oh, maybe that underdog status is what they need to go get a win. And then we got Groover and Iran in Levelland. Iran is playing really good football.
They played some great football. Their only loss is to Wink.
Right. No, they are tremendous out of that district, because that district is El Dorado and Sterling City's district.
Right. They beat Reagan County, handed them their only regular season loss, you know. Yeah. So Iran's playing great. They made their first state 7-on-7 appearance last year. We had an idea they might be, you know, an up-and-coming team, and they've had a huge year out there. And again, another team kind of way out there on the fringe, but they shouldn't be overlooked too much, you know.
Well, no, and I remember going down that big-ass hill, down into Iran. They always had that board of, you know, state champs, and they were recent state champs back then. But they looked like they could be getting back. I do think they're building something special down there in Iran. All right, let's move on. For any banking needs, go Texas Bank. Proven local, strong is how customers refer to Texas Bank, one of the most successful banks in the Lone Star State. Texas Bank is a full-service bank with over $2 billion in assets, and they operate in 16 locations from El Paso to Dallas-Fort Worth, including 3 right here in San Angelo, located at 2201 Sherwood Way, 1815 North Chadburn, and 4206 College Hills. Texas Bank staff are your friends, family, and neighbors. All right, we got Menard and Gordon on Thursday in Weatherford. It's been a good run, Menard, but Gordon is the real deal.
So, yeah, you know, they 45'd everybody. They've allowed 5 touchdowns the whole season. Defending state champ, number 1. What more can you say? And then Menard, just their 3rd year in 6-man. They coming off their first ever playoff win, so 9-win season. Really a breakthrough year for Menard under head coach Clay Holland, but this looks like the end of the road. This would be tough to imagine them doing much more here. I mean, again, a team that's given up 5 touchdowns in 11 games.
No, you know? they're just playing. Gordon's just an outstanding 6-man team. Moving on, Water Valley and Knox City. Water Valley's playing extremely well.
Yeah, it's pretty much like they never left, you know.
They never missed a beat of 6-man.
They dropped right back into 6-man. You know, the last time they were here, they were in the state quarters. Now they're around away again. Knox City's a good team. They're 8-3. They're a solid program. They should, you know, it's not like Water Valley's going to 45 this team. I don't believe they'll give them a test. But Water Valley, man, they had a good district, you know, with Robert Lee and Very Best. They had some tough games. Buena Vista, you know, I mean. And they're balanced. I think that's what's impressive, too. It's not just one guy. They've got 3 or 4 guys with Landon Lacey, Anthony Quintana, Boston Weeks, Gunnar Brooks. This is a good team. I think that balance is going to serve them well, and I think they're the favorite to move on to the state quarters again.
I know. They'll be matching up pretty well. One team that might get 45, Jayton and Blackwell. Jayton is just out of their minds, playing extremely well, number 1 or number 2 in the state.
Yeah.
And poor Blackwell. I don't know what didn't they have trouble at the beginning of the year?
They did. They're kind of similar to Coleman. They started 0-5, and another team. I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe. This
I wonder if there was like an injury there in 2 days or something, and it just kind of threw them out.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure. You know, they were a little bit down. They weren't the Blackwell team that's making state quarters and semis runs a few years ago, but still a good program. They got off to the rough start. It's easy to kind of write a team off at that point. Okay, it's a down year. And great finish. They win 5 of their next 6. I didn't think they'd win their playoff game last week versus Balmorhea. They proved me wrong, 56-30 win. So, but again,
yeah, because Balmorhea, they won state just a few years ago as well.
Yeah,
I think it was the COVID
year. Final. Yeah, you know, so yeah, again, Blackwell, just like Coleman, proved me wrong. But I feel confident in saying that's just too big of an obstacle this week versus Jayton. But great job by Blackwell making it this far and still hanging around.
No, absolutely. And then we have Zephyr and Richland Springs. Zephyr was picked pretty high in the preseason, but so was Richland Springs, and they've just built a monster out there just west of San Saba.
Yeah, you know, this is a matchup of top 10 teams, but it doesn't feel like it in a sense just because of Richland Springs. They're just a favorite no matter who they play. Zephyr's had a great season. They beat Very Best. they've done a great job to get to this point, you know.
But Richland Springs is just a different animal. I mean, they just
right.
like when you think about six-man football and you think about Richland Springs, they're way up here in six-man football. It's all, you know, they are, regardless of how they got those teams, they are the team in six-man. I feel like Benjamin might kind of took that away from them for the past couple years because they had Rigdon and they had the Hayes kids, and they were just dominating up there in Benjamin. I know they're still in the playoffs, but when you think of Richland Springs, when you think of, you know, six-man football, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, there's an intimidation factor, you know, before you even step on the field. And Zephyr's not too far away. You know, they've played Zephyr many times over the years, and Zephyr hadn't beaten them since the 90s. You know, even a couple years ago, they met in the playoffs. Zephyr's having an 8 or 9 win season. They get 45'd. You know, so I think Zephyr is good enough to play with them and not get 45'd. But it's very difficult to imagine Zephyr actually pulling off the upset. It's hard to imagine Richland Springs losing before they're in the state semis, basically, you know.
I know, but they have Oglesby in there, though, that would give them a good run. I was looking at that one. If they play that one, it'd probably be the Graveyard or somewhere like that. In between, you know.
Definitely. If Cherokee or Oglesby next week, Richland Springs, it's going to start getting a lot tougher, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not getting a bye week in the area round. You know, you got one last week. That's the only one you're going to get, so I hope you got rested up and ready. And you have to go out there now and actually, you know, play some good football, you know, play really good, play some football instead of just sitting, you know, waiting for who you're going to play.
Right. That's one thing Zephyr's got going in their favor. They've played a lot of tough teams. They've been in games this year. If they can keep it close, Richland Springs really hasn't been in games, you know.
Well, I mean, is that how we're, you know, maybe how you think Richland Springs drops this one just because they had an off week? You know,
maybe so.
That off week's not always a good thing.
They didn't have a great schedule, and it's tough for Richland Springs to line up opponents. People don't want to play them, but they didn't have a great schedule. They haven't been really tested, you know. I thought Rochelle would be a team that tested them, and I don't know if Rochelle had some injuries or what, because they barely got past. But they think they lost to Panther Creek, which I wasn't expecting. Though Rochelle really gave Cherokee a run for their money last week. I think it was 102 to 82. But so that may be the only thing. It's hard to know really what we have with this Richland Springs team, but based on tradition alone, you got to give them the benefit that they're about to make a big playoff run.
Yep, I feel like we have to address the game this past week that was held out there in Erie County. Just a monster of a score. The 6th highest scoring game, Robert Lee and Westbrook. Just fantastic. I was typing out my script for it, and I could only put the first half highlight because we had a little bit of trouble getting clips back, but I could just put the first half in, and it took up an entire page of, okay, time, quarter, this guy, you know, Brenner Sherwood with the long run, and it took almost an entire page just for the first half. And what was it, 116 to 102?
I think it was 116 to 110.
110, you're
right. They
right.
were on pace. They were both over 100 going into the fourth. They're on pace to be the highest scoring game ever. And then finally the defense has stepped up. Maybe they started running the ball more to bleed some clock, you know. But so what's interesting is on that list, it's the second highest scoring game ever between public schools. And even the public school game that was higher than that, one of those schools was playing outlaw ball that year. They weren't even a UIL district. So as far as 2 UIL schools, it was the highest game ever, scoring game ever between 2, you know, UIL schools. But it wasn't just any old game, too. It was an important game. It was a playoff game.
Exactly.
And then Brenner Sherwood, I mean, and Robert Lee both showed just how good they are. Brenner Sherwood is one of the best players in the state. I mean, over 600 yards of offense. Robert Lee
in that one game, 600 yards. I couldn't even count the touchdowns the kid had. I know Wyatt Morris against May last year had like 8 touchdowns and they lost. And that is what's, I guess, is nice about this is just six-man's kind of just a pure form of football. It's backyard really ball almost, you know?
Yeah, and it's got that intimate feel. The stands are close, you know. It's not some
people
big stadium.
Pull up to the fence in their trucks and watch the game, and
yeah, it could really embody
something pure
everything
to
about
it.
The Friday Night Lights, you know. And yeah, Sherwood had a hand in all 14 touchdowns. Absolutely incredible player. He may be the best six-man player in the area.
In the Concho, I really do think he might be. I mean, he ripped off several big runs in that game. Like you said, over 600 yards of total offense.
Yeah, it's too bad we don't get to keep seeing them. I would love to have another Robert Lee playoff game. You know, they had such a great
absolutely.
year.
They did have a great year. You know, and it was always they were in a power district with Erie County. Erie County's been the team the past few years where they had a solid, great team, and Robert Lee was, kind of there, and Water Valley was always kind of there, but yeah, I do feel for Brenda Sherwood and Coach McCowan out there to go out there and put 110 points. You should win that ball game.
Right, but they left no doubt that they belong, in the conversation about the better teams and Sherwood about the best players.
Absolutely, yeah, no, and maybe Westbrook needs to be on notice. Man, Robert Lee almost beat us last week. Maybe we need to, pull it together, and because Westbrook's always had a pretty good team.
Right.
They have a pretty good tradition over there in winning, and yeah, they might have gotten a wake up call against Robert Lee.
Definitely.
But all right, we're gonna go hear from Jim Bass real quick, and we'll be right back.
$59,999 for a new Ford Expedition XLT. Get a full-size 3-row seating SUV for the family that needs a lot of room. Equipped with a moonroof, second-row captain seats, along with many more features, make it the absolute perfect SUV. You can only get deals like this at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart and Arden Road, or shop 24/7 at bassbunch.com, or use this QR code. Yep, the one on my shirt.
All right, let's talk about some college football. Angelo State got another win last week.
Yeah, it was their 9th win in a row. Completed a perfect run to the Lone Star Conference. But really the most important thing was they'd already locked up the Lone Star Conference title. The big thing was the regional rankings. They entered the day number 4 in the regional rankings. They needed a win, and a big win, to cement their status, for a home playoff game. And it was good enough that, the teams above them, 2 and 3, dropped. So that let ASU move up to number 3. Thought they might move up to number 2, but Western Colorado jumped all the way from 5 to 2. You could argue that, but Western Colorado, 10-1 team, I think it's deserving. Their only loss is to CSU Pueblo by 10, so I think it's deserving. And ASU really can't complain. So they got the 3 seed. They're at home. They've got Bemidji State, a team that's only 100 miles from Canada. So you wouldn't think they'd have much history, but they actually played them 2 years ago in the playoffs here in San Angelo, won 33-7. I think
it's
I told y'all
flight right there.
Earlier, Bemidji is going to be 29 degrees up in Minnesota this Saturday, so thank God it's in San Angelo where it's going to be a high of 77,
Oh, I know. Could you imagine players up there? Could you imagine if they played the home game and Angelo State had to fly up to Bemidji State?
Yeah, I think that Bemidji'd have a big home field advantage with that kind of weather.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe we'll get them sweating down here in our 77-degree weather.
Right.
They don't see sweltering temps like that. But, just to break down the matchup a little bit, 2 great defenses, both of them allowing less than 16 points a game. ASU's number 9 defense, ranked defense, Bemidji's number 17. I think that ASU can separate themselves with their offense. Braden Fuller, good Lord, no interceptions. A sophomore quarterback, 11 games.
It took them a while
no
to
picks.
land on Fuller, too.
They're alternating
it took them a while there at the
quarterbacks
beginning of the
first 2
season.
games. And then Caden Smith goes down, and then Fuller takes it, and he just never gives the job back. And he just played so well. And I mean, he's thrown about 2,200 yards passing. So, he does a lot of damage with his legs, but he just takes care of the ball. And that's so huge with a defense like that. And a punter, they have the number 4 punter, his brother, number 4 punter in the nation. So just such a complete team. I think ASU's the favorite. But again, Bemidji's a good team. They beat the number 2 team in the region last week to cement their own spot. And ASU did in their season 2 years ago. So they may have some revenge on their minds. With both these defenses, though, being so good, it could be low scoring, and it could be anybody's game. I think ASU's the favorite, though.
And you talked about that puncher. Having a good puncher like that in a good matchup it's almost, you can't put a price on it. It's so great to have the ability to flip the field. We talked about it in 2A ball when we were talking about Fall City. That quarterback for Fall City that year was also their punter and kicker. And he was great at it, and he could flip the field, so it made Cristobal drive the field. And I kept thinking, if Cristobal just had a quarterback or a kicker, a quarterback, they had Wilcox that year.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. If they had a kicker, though, I really feel like they could have won that game, and that just proves how important special teams is.
Yeah.
I mean, that being a Broncos fan, playing the Chiefs a couple weeks ago.
Man, I cannot even believe you're going to bring up that blocked field goal. But yes, it's an overlooked X factor. You just look at offense and defense, and in a close game, special teams can make a difference, especially if you allow the Chiefs to just run through the left side of your offensive line.
Hey, I'm a Cowboy fan. I have nothing to be excited about. I hope we lose out, and I hope we don't score another touchdown all year.
Y'all are making a serious run at the number 1 draft pick. I know.
Travis Hunter's going to look good in a Cowboy uniform. But Yeah, so Angelo State and Bemidji State, it should be a good game.
It should. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday. Great weather. You can't ask for better weather in mid-November. So, San Angelo fans, go out and support the Rams.
All right, now we're got to thank our college sponsor, the ArcLight Bar and Grill. Looking for the best buffalo wings in San Angelo? Head over to the ArcLight Bar and Grill, conveniently located inside the Clarion Hotel at 441 Rio Concho Drive. Their variety of wing flavors is second to none, featuring options like raspberry chipotle, ghost pepper, Nashville hot, sweet honey heat, teriyaki lime, and everything rub, and the classic hot wing. Relax and let ArcLight toss your wings to perfection while you enjoy the largest video wall in West Texas, surrounded by 20 additional flat screen TVs. Pair your meal with one of their daily drink specials, or for the ultimate dining experience. Go visit the ArcLight Bar and Grill inside the Clarion Hotel at 441 Rio Concho Drive. All right, final thoughts. Let's talk about what game are you most looking forward to here?
I don't know. I mean, I don't get to go out and cover a game this week, so I'm a little bit bummed out.
A little bit banged out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to covering some more football. Although at the same time, I'll be happy to dodge any cold weather, up in the Lubbock area or anything like that. I guess I think Junction Falls City is the one that intrigues me the most. I think it'll be the most competitive, and I just would love to see how Junction's going to respond to that test.
Right.
So I think that's the one that probably intrigues me the most. Some of the other ones are a little bit lopsided, and I feel like I know how they're going to play out. That's one that I just don't know how it's going to go.
Right. No, I mean that's a good thought right there. Because we don't know a lot about Falls City either. But we do know they have history, and we do know that Junction just playing out this year, leaving it all out there. My final thought: I'm actually going to Comanche on Friday for Zephyr and Richland Springs. We're gonna get a look at Richland Springs again, kind of team that's not actually in the Concho Valley technically, but they're just outside, and it's good enough. Where, of course, our coverage area is whatever I say it is. If I got to go to Brock and cover Brock, I'm gonna go do it. If I have to go to Victoria next week to cover Ganado and Refugio, I want to go do it. Because that's going to be a great matchup next week. Because I do think those two teams are going to match up. And other than Sunray is another team that I think is going to have a good matchup. They got Holly this week. That's a great matchup there. So I kind of wish we had other great matchups like that. But yeah, we didn't talk about that one because we didn't include Sunray. They're way out of this. But Lujan, their quarterback, is outstanding. And when you have a good quarterback at any level, it covers up a lot of your deficiencies and a lot of what you maybe not be so good at. I mean, and Wall knows about that. The Cavalier kid from Canadian covered up a lot of Band-Aids, and Sunray does have that quarterback. And Holly's playing good. Abels is a good receiver for him. I think his brother might still be the quarterback there. Obviously, Mitch Abels is still there, and they went to 2 state titles They went to 2 state games in a row a couple years back, and they had D1 receivers in Deontay Ramon and Chandler Meyer, who I think they went and signed at Tech. So Holly is, of course, an extremely good team, and that should be one of the greater matchups this week. And you just can't be everywhere. You wish you could go to every game and experience it, but you just can't, and that sucks.
Yeah, Texas is just so huge, and there's some great games this week, and it's just going to get better and better and better, and really there's no better state, for it. And like I said, that's just part of it. You just can't get everywhere, so you just get to what you can, and then try to catch all the rest,
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at it. Like Jayden's probably going to match up with Benjamin. I'm sure that would be a great game. But then you have Richland Springs and Oglesby matching up. That's going to be a great game, and just in the 6-man level,
right?
I can't really speak to 6A and 5A because I'm more of a small school guy, but Friendship playing South Lake Carroll, that seems like a really good matchup.
That's exciting, and it's kind of like the El Paso schools. They run into this West Texas wall, and the West Texas schools, they run into this Metroplex wall now. I think any West Texas school that can break through, a lot of West Texans are going to root for them. If Midland Legacy's the last team standing, if Friendship's the last team standing, I think a lot of West Texas rallies around them because we are the underdogs out here now. It's tough against these Metroplex beasts and the Houston and San Antonio, Austin schools.
No,
so,
that I-35 line is
right.
tough.
So, I mean, me personally, even though they're a district rival of Central's, I hope Friendship can push Carroll. I'd love to see one of our schools still alive next week.
Well, I mean, and beating a program like South Lake Carroll, who traditionally has an extremely good program, that would be big for Friendship there.
That would be a program-defining win right there.
Yeah. But this is all we have for you for Cover 1 today. We are going to run the show again on Saturday, or the post-game show on Saturday. So tune in Saturday for our post-game show. For Paul Harris and